Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks. And considering this game has been out for 8 years now, I was really thinking that Wargaming wouldn't be able to continue to introduce brand new mechanics into their game. And yeah, as you can see from this developer diaries, double-barreled vehicles could be going into the game if they manage to make it out a super test and they feel that the mechanic is novel, interesting, and I guess fits into the game well. Now, so many of you have been asking me to watch this video, or at least to have my opinion on it, so here we go. Let's check out Wargaming's Developer Diaries video that was released globally across all of their YouTube channels.
Back in 2011, when we were testing update 0.7.0, we released an interesting and unusual vehicle called the MTLS.
Do you know what? The MTLS, aka I think it's like a tier 3 American light tank, although the reward vehicle which you have in the game now was nothing compared to what it was like back in 0.7.0. The MTLS was possibly one of the most broken tanks at low tier, and it was probably one of the most fun things about going to Wargaming's events is that they had accounts with pretty much everything unlocked on them. And you could play the MTLS, and just the fact that the gun fired one by one, well, it's two guns fired in sequentially was just, it's just absolutely incredible. The thing was completely broken at low tiers though, which immediately makes me worry when they're talking about this tank, but let's press on.
Players noticed it right away because of its twin-barreled gun.
Yeah, of course.
Right after that, we were asked to add this mechanic to the game, along with other vehicles that had similar features.
So the question is, why didn't we add this mechanic before? Why did we only recently start working on it despite its potential? There are at least 3 reasons for that. The first is historical. There weren't many such vehicles that actually existed or had good detailed blueprints.
We needed to properly integrate.
The whole idea of blueprints, understandable that when the game was coming out in the patch 0.7, 0.8, they were pretty much basing their tech trees on things that had good blueprints or even actually existed. At least in the recent years, it's evident that the tanks are starting to run out that can go into the game, and so Wargaming have to stretch the boundaries a little bit. Obviously, something like this isn't going to be popular amongst the players who only want the game to be historical. But for the other players, and I think I would also include myself in this, it needs to have development. More tanks need to go into the game, otherwise it's going to become stale. And so I guess this is what Wargaming are planning to see if they can exploit.
This mechanic to the existing game ecosystem without destroying it, while at the same time making it interesting and desirable for players. Before the release of the Italian vehicles, we didn't have the proper technical ability to implement the mechanics of firing 2 guns.
Okay, so it's the Italian auto reloaders that have enabled this to happen.
Working on the design and historical aspects.
Okay. So yeah, obviously Italian auto reloaders, if you don't know, they fire one and then you can either continue to fire them and unload the entire magazine with an intricate delay, or alternatively you can fire a shell, wait for a single shot to reload, fire a shell, wait for a single shot to reload without impacting your damage per minute. Unless, of course, we're talking about the IS-3A, and its damage per minute actually ends up getting better the more that it unloads. We'll have to see what's going to happen with the double-barreled vehicles.
World War II, the USSR started creating several projects for tanks and SPGs.
Oh, I absolutely love this when Wargaming go into the historical aspects of the game. Okay, not to be confused with the Tier 8 Chinese premium medium tank.
Along with the F-34 on the turret of the famous 34.
2 45mm guns on a T-34.
Than the design stage. Based on the KV, 2 SPG prototypes were created under the working name of
Don't create
KV-7,
double-barrel
one with
self-propelled
triple gun
guns.
system and one with double 76mm guns. However, the project was closed after testing the prototypes. Finally,
Look at that. That's what it would look like. I guess it'd be more of a tank destroyer than a self-propelled gun, at least from what you're thinking of. Finally, in 1945.
In 1945, the ST-1 and ST-2 tank projects were introduced. The second one had either double 100mm or 122mm guns.
So this is very interesting because obviously the ST-1 is in the game and it's not the STI. This is the end-all reason. It is the ST-1, boys and girls. It's not the STI. Please, it's dead. It's dead. The STI is gone. Well, thankfully, hopefully. This is sounding wrong. Anyway, look, ST-2 it never went into the game. Are we going to get to see it to go in first? I'm really excited.
There was no official military engineer response to the ST-2 project.
Okay.
The vehicle wasn't even prototyped. The objective drawbacks were the same for all projects regarding this kind of vehicle.
So what were the problems?
Increase in turret or cabin size led to an increase in the general weight of
Obviously,
the
if you have to have 2
At the
guns,
same
you have to have a
time,
bigger
more
turret.
Space was needed for the crew. Dealing with 2 or 3 guns was harder than with 1.
Can you imagine the
Basically,
loader?
Ergonomics was suffering. This and other problems made it harder and more expensive to create and maintain such vehicles, making their assembly and usage technically and economically impractical.
It would make sense. Why wouldn't you just make a single gun better, able to fire at an incredible rate? The only problem, I guess, of having a single barrel on a tank would be if the barrel was to get damaged or to get worn out, and if you were to have 2 barrels on the gun, 2 barrels on the tank, then I guess that it would put the pressure of wear and tear over both of them.
During the creation of the game
Or have a
models,
redundancy.
we considered the existing aspects of implementing
Protection.
twin-barrel guns in tank turrets.
All right, okay, so
We
wow.
had to consider a pretty large number of parameters, such as design, historical, and technical aspects. That's why we dedicated a lot of time to creating a prototype with this mechanic.
I think that they fundamentally have to always do that with all of their vehicles. It's interesting that they say this. It's almost if they're reassuring us that they are thinking about the health of the game. Because there's going to be a lot of people out there who I guess are very worried. They're having another brand new mechanic going in. A lot of people didn't like the auto reloaders. Many people didn't like the wheeled vehicles going into the game. Is this going to be another one of them? We'll have to find out.
We conducted many internal tests, and soon we'll start testing this mechanic on a larger scale in the super test. This
Okay,
is
so it's
only
going to go into the
first
super
large-scale
test
of
soon,
this
before a
mechanic,
test server.
And there's no final decision about implementing it in the game. Everything will of course depend on the test results.
I'm not sure about that though. Wargaming always say this, that nothing is sure that it's going to go into the game. But when I think about any features that have actually made it to the super test, apart from possibly some of the changes in the premium ammo that haven't come to light or have come to fruition, at least of yet, when things go to the super test, I feel like Wargaming have invested so much into them with regards to development time that they will go into the game in one form or another. I guess it's just about how they're going to be balanced as to how it is
And on
going
how
to
acceptable
work
for the
out.
game the mechanics will be. Only then will we decide if we continue working on it or not. In this video, we'll talk about the
Sounds like a bit of a
mechanic,
caveat
using
to
a
me.
prototype vehicle as an example,
Okay.
which may be added to the game at some point. We wanted to first
Maybe.
of all test the mechanic itself, not the characteristics of a certain vehicle or its peculiarities in the game.
Okay, so let's clarify that everything that you see in the statistics that I'm going to be discussing in this video are completely, I know I always say subject to change, but this is really early stuff here, and so everything that you see, don't get excited for it in this form. It's just a concept. It's a concept video. That's what we're discussing here. It's a purely concept-based video.
That's why we use a so-called baseline vehicle. It'll be a heavy tank, it'll be slow, and it'll of course have 2 guns. And it will not be the ST2. It does not suit Tier 8 very well. And we wanted to...
So I guess this is a concept vehicle, but it's really interesting for me that Wargaming seem to want to test things at Tier 8. They want to test things at Tier 8. Is that because they want this to be a premium tank? Or is it because they feel that Tier 8 is where they actually want the balance of the game to be around? Why not test it at Tier 10 and then try and scale back from there? Get it balanced at Tier 10 and then scale it back. I guess they want to try and get the premium vehicle correct, if this is even going to be a premium tank.
This is mechanic precisely for Tier 8. Here's our vehicle. As you can see, it has 2 guns. They are the same caliber. The
Okay,
vehicle
so
can
same
fire these
caliber.
guns in 3 different ways. The general cyclic way,
Cyclic way.
consecutive fire,
So like an autoloader. Wow.
and the double shot with both guns simultaneously.
Ooh! What? Oh my word.
Cyclic mode is the simplest one.
Oh, thank
You can
goodness they're
even
going to
say
explain
it's
it a
the
little bit more.
classic. You
Okay,
fire
so
a
classic
shell,
firing.
wait for reloading to complete, and fire the next gun. Because we
Boom.
have 2 guns, and at any given moment of time, only one of them can be active, meaning the one we are aiming with. or
Yeah,
the
how are they going to
camera
handle
is
the
looking
camera?
through.
How are they going to handle the
game
camera?
switches to the next gun automatically.
Oh,
after
did
the
you see
shot,
it? It moved over
alternating
towards the
one
right.
after another.
And now maybe it's going to move over to the left. Whoa, so that's not actually the tank
Similar to
moving.
the Italian
That's
vehicles,
them changing the
we can
viewport that you're
identify
looking
a
through.
second way of shooting, similar
Or
to a classic
where you're
auto
looking
loader.
from on the tank.
We have a time for loading between shots.
Okay, so
Fire
notice.
a number of shells sequentially.
So when we're watching that part of the video, let me just rewind it a sec
Similar
to
to
here.
the Italian
So this is very
vehicles,
important
we
to
can
look
identify a
at
second way
as
of
whether it's an
shooting,
Italian auto
similar
reloader
to
or
a
as it
classic
performs
one.
an unloader. So watch this. Okay, just going to mute it so I can explain it to myself. Okay, so with fire, Okay, so you can see 2 timers here. One says 13.8 seconds, and I guess that's the time it takes to reload the entire shell. But also, you'll notice this red bar filling up here. That's the actual intra-clip delay. So as we can see, it looks like the intra-clip delay is probably about 4 to 5 seconds, and that means that you could fire the second shot just like you would do an auto-reloader. So it looks like it's going to have very much the same functionality.
But there's a catch. If you
Okay,
fire your
what's the
second gun
catch?
while the first one is reloading, the reloading of the first gun is interrupted.
Just like an auto-reloader. Exactly like an auto-reloader.
Now
So
for
if
the
you know your
interesting
Italian
part,
auto-reloaders,
firing
it looks
two
like these are
guns.
very
How
similar.
does it work?
Okay, how does it work? God, look at that.
To fire both guns at the same time.
What'd you do?
Just press and hold the left mouse button,
Oh!
which will start the shot preparation.
Oh, it's got a charge time! Did you see that? It's got a charge time. Oh my lord. Watch this. Look.
Just press and hold the left mouse button.
Holding the left mouse
Which will
button,
start
it
the
looks like
shot
it about
preparation.
3 seconds.
When it ends,
Boom!
both
Oh
guns
my
will fire
word.
simultaneously.
Wow. Okay.
The player can cancel this preparation phase simply by releasing the left mouse button if firing is
So you can
impossible,
cancel?
or the enemy has
Okay.
left your line of fire.
Oh. It's not gonna... Not this time.
Neither of them can be
Boom!
reloaded for some time.
791. So it looks like this is a tier 8, probably with a 122mm gun on either side.
The method of aiming and shell trajectory became the main obstructions for the entire mechanic.
Okay.
We had a choice of aiming both guns at the same time, or in some other way. To fire both shells at the same time or consecutively. From 2 points, 4 from 1. We ended up selecting aiming with one active gun.
Okay, so what this gentleman is talking about here is the fact that... But the guns aren't going to be on top of... Well, the guns aren't combined. They're going to have a distance between them. And so the issue will be, which gun do you look out of when you want to fire double? I guess it will be the opposite one of that you last fired, the one that's about to be loaded again, if that makes sense. Because you can't put the view between the two guns, I guess, because wow, it's let's see. Maybe hopefully they explain a little bit more. Okay,
you only
good.
Need to know 2 things. First, shells always fly parallel to each other.
Ah,
despite
okay.
a deviation from the central axis during
Ah. So there
Second,
will...
the distance between flying shells equals the distance between the vehicle's guns.
Shells
So does that mean that the RNG of each shell is going to this is an interesting question for me. Does that mean that the RNG of each shell is going to be different with how the shell flies? So for example, it could start here, but then it could spread away from each other, or it could spread and try and cross, because you know the magic of how shells happen in World of Tanks. Do you think both shells are going to be linked and that they won't cross or they won't do things like that? Imagine if you could create a cross shot to kill 2 tanks with a single... Oh, I'm calling it right now. Imagine the shells crossing and ricocheting. The chance for RNG. This is effectively going to be double RNG firing 2 shells at one time,
hit
right?
different spots.
Okay, so they hit
we
different
calculate
spots.
Damage and penetration for each shell separately.
Okay.
It means that one of the shells may penetrate while the other may
One could
ricochet.
bounce and one could pen.
In a round where
Wow.
both shells penetrate the armor and deal
Boom,
different
that's
damage.
884
There's
damage
one
to
more
a
important
mouse.
aspect.
Wow.
Shells fly from each gun, and each gun has its own calculations.
Sure.
It's very important to understand that if the left gun has a direct line of sight with a target for shooting, and you can hit it, that doesn't mean that the right gun isn't blocked by something.
Ah, around a
For
corner.
example, this kind of situation can happen.
Yeah, like a
You're
pillar.
standing near the corner of a building, and
Okay.
aiming with your left gun.
Yeah.
You can clearly see the target and able to penetrate it, so you prepare to fire.
Ooh,
But
double
in the
shot.
current
What's gonna
aim mode,
happen?
You can't correctly calculate the firing direction.
Only
of the
penned one
second
shell.
gun, which might
I
really
guess
be
'cause the
aiming
right
at
gun
wall.
goes into the
So
wall,
after
right?
the double shot, the shell from the right gun
Yeah.
would hit the wall, while
So
the
only
shell from the left
395.
gun would hit the target as intended.
Okay. Wow. Wow. So the only real question that maybe some of you can answer down below, or maybe Wargaming can clarify to me, are the shells RNG with where they fly linked, or does each shell manage to deviate a little bit? Obviously, it's not a huge amount of deviation. Some of these Soviet tanks, though, have got pretty big deviation right as to where the shell goes. Do you think each one is randomly rolled, or do you think they're linked and they go off like as if they're linked by
Also,
some
there's
kind
always
of
the same type of shell
tether?
on both guns. If you want to change the shell type, for
Oh
example, from
no,
AP to
just like the
APCR,
Italian auto reloaders, you have to load the
both
same
guns.
type.
You can't have different shells in different guns.
Boo! That would have been so fun. Imagine it. Imagine having one gun of heat and one gun of APCR, or one gun of high explosive and one gun of APCR. How fun would that have been? You know, you come round and you're going into the enemy's base to try and take on their artillery. You've got one gun of HE, so you can blow up that self-propelled gun in a single shot. But then the medium tank on low hit points comes around the corner that you're unable to be able to penetrate with HE and use the APCR round on him. Oh, it would have been amazing. I still would have loved to have had that on an Italian auto reloader, but I can understand why Wargaming wouldn't want to do it.
How do you play such a vehicle? It's pretty simple.
Okay.
Generally, you either use cyclical reloading or consecutive. This type of gameplay is familiar to players as they actively use it
Italian
for
auto
vehicles with
reloader.
auto-loaders.
Yeah, auto reloaders.
It's not hard. Shoot if you see the target. Shoot again if you can shoot again.
Yeah, no, that depends. That depends on how long the reload will get. Is this going to work like an Italian auto reloader, where the more that you fire, the worse your DPM gets because your reload gets longer? Or is this going to work like an IS-3A, where your reload actually gets faster the more shells that you unload? So that's going to be a huge decision that Wargaming needs to make. Is the IS-3A going to be novel, or are they going to make this like a reverse auto reloader as well? We'll just have to find out if that's going to be the
Can you
case.
fire both guns? It's an interesting mechanic that gives you an additional opportunity in battle, but you should think twice before using it.
Sure.
Before firing both guns, you
Why?
must consider several things
Okay.
at once.
What are they?
First, you must see your target clearly.
Sure.
And make sure it's not too far away from
Oh, that prep. That's awesome. That's awesome. Did you see that prep? Oh, that's amazing. Because obviously the problem with firing 2 barrels at the same time is the prep time, and it looks to be about 3 seconds on this tank. And so you have to prepare the double shot to be able to unload it at the same time. That's actually huge, and it will, in theory, enhance your DPM a little bit because there's no difference between the 3-second intra-clip reload. Also, so that we'll actually have to take a look at the statistics. Hold on, I'll discuss all that in a little bit.
It's not too far away for you to hit it.
Oh, that juicy shot into the lower plate.
The battle situation might change during the shot preparation.
Yeah, sure.
You must make sure the target
Oh,
doesn't
that
disappear from your
pre-shots.
reticle during this time.
Oh.
You also have a chance to retreat to
Oh,
the
that's
shot
so
you can
juicy. That's going to be
safely endure
such a
lengthy
feels-good
reload.
moment.
This
I mean, not
mechanic
for the
will be
Panther
actively
2,
tested in the
but...
super test in the nearest future. We will be testing the mechanic itself, not any characteristics of any vehicles nor balance parameters. We
We'll
want to
see.
understand how well the mechanic integrates into the game.
Okay.
Whether it's competitive, and if it's interesting gameplay-wise.
Looks interesting to
Only
me.
after successful testing will we start testing certain vehicles. You'll learn about them in another video. While you wait, leave your feedback on the forum, share your opinion, and good luck on the battlefield. See you soon.
So if you want to, guys, get involved. Go onto Wargaming's forums. Go and give your opinion. Say whether this looks good. Say what your concerns are. If you absolutely despise the look of this, go and tell them now, because at least they've said in the video that all of this is subject to change, but more importantly, won't even go into the game if the community doesn't think that it's going to add to the game, and it's only going to take away from it. So go and have your opinion, whatever it may be. Okay, so one thing that they didn't mention in the video, and that I was trying to talk about before I talked about the intra-clip reload or delay or anything, is that this is a very important mechanic, that after a double shot, both guns are blocked and do not reload for some time. Now, I held off making this video because I didn't really want to theorycraft about how long guns would be blocked for, and how Wargaming are actually going to manage to balance this, so not everybody is just holding down their mouse button and doing double shots and then waiting the 30 seconds to reload or so. And interestingly, Wargaming have already given us some statistics for an otherwise unnamed vehicle. Although, even though they've kind of blurred out the name on all of their pictures they have here, if we take a look on their double barrel mechanics thread on the World of Tanks website, we can see they're calling it the Prototype 1. So that's what I'm going to be calling it now as well. So here we can see the Prototype 1, and yeah, it kind of looks a lot like an IS-3 with more of a classic angled upper hull. So clearly the first vehicle that they're using, aka the Prototype 1, is not going to be an ST1 or even an ST2. This is most likely going to end up as a premium tank in the game. I'd be very surprised if it didn't. I'd be very surprised if the first tank that doesn't go into the game is going to be a premium one for testing this mechanic. But Wargaming, I would absolutely love it if it goes into the game at the same time, as a whole tech tree of these vehicles if that's what they're planning to do. We'll have to see. But I mean, I guess the lure of putting these things in loot boxes for Christmas, Wargaming, please don't do that. And if you do, I beg you, sell them separately if something happens. Anyway, look, my mind is running at 100 miles an hour with what the ramifications for a tank like this are going to be. So let's just actually get stuck in to the statistics of the vehicle. Now, look, I'll clarify. All of these statistics are purely so that they can super test this tank to try and test the mechanics of the vehicle. So I'm not going to do an in-depth comparison of this compared to an IS-3A, for example. What I'm going to do instead is use the new statistics that have fundamental implications for how this vehicle will perform on the super test, i.e. with its double barrel functionality. And we can use it to flesh out the video we saw a little bit more. So here's the first thing to note. Do you see this? It says preparation time for a single shot, 3.5 seconds. This is super important, boys and girls. What this means is that's how long you are going to have to hold down the mouse button before you fire both barrels at the same time. It's interesting that Wargaming would say this is preparation time for a single shot. I think that they should replace this word for double. Unless I'm mistaken, I believe this is the preparation time for a double shot. I guess when they say single shot, maybe it's lost in translation, the idea of firing both guns in a single at the same time, if that makes sense. Now, I did watch the video, and it looks to be about 3.5 seconds. So that means you have to hold down your mouse for literally 0. Bang. So that's how long you have to hold down your mouse for before you can fire a double shot. That's a long time. That's enough time for people to be able to stop and pull back round a corner. That's enough time for them to notice where you are and to be able to turn round and engage you, or even just angle their armor to a point where your 121 millimeters of standard penetration are no longer enough to go through the 75, for example. However, I was thinking about what the ramifications of like double shot would be. Where would a double shot be useful? Well, of course, the double shot doesn't mean anything if the intra-clip reload, or the delay between firing a single gun and then firing the second gun is not very long. As we can see here, the gun changing time, which I presume is the time that it takes to change between the two guns, is 5 seconds. So what this means is that you can fire a double shot after you hold down your mouse for 3.5 seconds. And that's only really going to save you 1.5 seconds that you would have been able to just fire a single shot and then wait 5 seconds and then fire another shot. Now, of course, 1.5 seconds in World of Tanks can be an incredibly long time. But the interesting thing is that after you double shot, apparently your reloading lock time is 7 seconds. And so this means that if you want to just fire your double shot, just for the hell of it to try and kill the enemy tank as fast as possible, you're only going to shave 1.5 seconds off what it would have taken you to aim each shot individually, i.e. with a 5-second intra-clip reload. But importantly then, you're going to have 7 seconds of not actually being able to reload at all for your guns, I guess as a balancing mechanic. And so this means that you're actually only losing 5.5 seconds of reload that would have taken place if you had just fired the guns. 1, wait 5 seconds. 2. And of course, the damage is going to be the same. So I guess it's, you use this mechanic when it will allow you to be able to hit 2 shots in a 3.5 second window, i.e. when, as we saw on Himmelsdorf, that Panther II's coming right out across the corridor, and you've got a moment gap to be able to nail both of those shots. I.e., you wouldn't have been able to fire one, wait 5 seconds, and fire another one before they managed to cross the gap. So you can save it all up, and you can prepare and fire a double shot. And then you're going to effectively lose 5.5 seconds of nothing, just wasted DPM, and then you're going to start loading again. So one thing that's interesting for me is that Wargaming have put the reload time as 13 seconds for each of the guns. So does this mean that this tank is not like an auto reloader, i.e. the more shells it fires, the longer it is going to take to reload? I can't clarify that, but it looks like that is going to be the case. So to be able to reload both guns from having no shells, if you've not double shotted, it's going to take you 26 seconds to be able to get both shots back into the tank. However, let's say you double shotted, then it's actually going to take you, it's going to take you 33 seconds to be able to get both shots back into the tank. So this is significant. It's very significant. It's something that you have to consider. But of course, again, when I said it will take you 33 seconds to be able to get both shots back into the tank, that's not taking into account the fact that you saved 1.5 seconds by not waiting for the second shell to be able to intra-clip reload. Wow! Hopefully I'm explaining it correctly. Let me just put it down into very basic terms. You use the double shot when you think that that changing the 5 seconds intra-clip reload to the 3.5 seconds preparation time to be able to fire double shot will save you from maybe taking a shot from the enemy tank in those extra 1.5 seconds. Let's say there's a bat chat and the bat chat's unloading on you. Well, in 5 seconds, a bat chat could probably get 1, 2, 3 shots off on you. But in 3.5 seconds, it's never going to get more than 2 shots off on you, or even 1 shot if you manage to catch it ill-prepared. So charging up a double shot will be a fantastic thing to do when you're coming round a corner and you want to surprise your opponent, to just shut them down immediately before they have time to then turn their tank around and shoot you. Or alternatively, it'll be a fantastic thing to do when you know that you can't get that extra shot off because you only have, I guess, a split second to be able to shoot the enemy tank, and you're tracking them as they're coming around that corner on Himmelsdorf. Bam! Double shot. Whereas if they'd come around the corner, you fire 1, then you have to wait 5 seconds to be able to fire another 1. But it's definitely not going to be a good thing to do if you know that you need to shoot again as soon as possible, if you can't spend an extended period of downtime. So, I must say, hats off to Wargaming for creating an interesting way to balance out this mechanic. Sure, it's going to give you an advantage in some situations, but it is not just a case of an advantage that the tank has that doesn't also draw it back or leave it very vulnerable. If you see a tank do a double shot, you will definitely be able to come around that corner and you know it's not going to be able to shoot again for another 20 seconds. That's a huge downtime for a tank that only has 390 alpha damage. But as with all game mechanics, when you, apart from something like an IS-3A, where frankly you just keep holding down your mouse button and you just fire when you can because it gets, the reload gets shorter and shorter, as opposed to the Italian auto reloaders, when sometimes it can be hugely influential to actually hold the shot, to be able to then reload faster, to be able to keep firing, because you know otherwise you're going to die, or you're going to lower your DPM so much that extra tank comes in to be able to focus you. That when you add mechanics that players have to decide about if it's the right thing to use them, I think that's good. That's good gameplay. And I think it's good game development. We want abilities to be able to increase the skill cap of the game. Look at the recent what's it called, Steel Hunter game mode, aka Wargaming's Battle Royale. Probably should do a video on that on my channel. I've got lots of footage saved up, and let me know in the comments down below if you'd like to see one or not. I know that the event's over now, but maybe just to have something up. Anyway, that game mode has had tons of mechanics that you could use and hopefully you would use them better than your opponents. And when you use mechanics better than your opponents, that means the skill cap is higher. And that's something that I can see happening with this tank as well. There are going to be just as many players who use these mechanics flawlessly to dominate the battle as there will be absolute potatoes who think it's just the right thing to do to hold down the mouse button to fire a double shot, to find that one of them went into the pillar, or one of them deviated a little bit and bounced off the armor of the tank in front. And also, if you see somebody charging up a double shot, you can tell maybe they're thinking this. You might be able to jink your tank to the left or to the right, or just change the angle to hopefully absorb it into one of your tracks, or even just glance off the side of your hull. And then you've really got the enemy tank vulnerable. I'm sure that this is going to make some really interesting replays, and I can't wait to commentate on them. And Wargaming, I would love to get involved in the super test for this tank as well, to just either deliver feedback or alternatively to, maybe do a video for YouTube where I can share some very early opinions as well. So that'd be pretty sweet. So all in all, this tank pretty much looks like an IS-3A that has the ability to do a double shot, although there are some statistics of the tank that are the weaker. There are some statistics of the tank that also look a little bit stronger. So, wow, what do I think all in all about the double shot? I've been talking for a while now. I'm going to say that it's going to be a controversial mechanic, but as long as Wargaming incorporate it in a way where it's just not the new best thing, then I think that it should be a fun addition to the game. I think it'll be exciting to have more vehicles where you have to make more decisions and not just sit there with your hull down tank and just snore. I think it's good to have variety in the game, and I think that it's important that Wargaming continue to develop it and to add new exciting mechanics into the game, and don't just sit on their laurels or even leave the game in the state that it is, because it'll stagnate, it'll get boring, and people will move off for other titles or even just move off for other things in their life. So I'm really looking forward to the double-barreled tanks. I can't wait to feature them on the YouTube channel more. And hopefully this video and my explanations were useful for all of you. If they were, give the video a thumbs up, but if you hated it, give it a thumbs down, and let me know in the comments what you think about the double-barrel tanks. And once again, I'd like to clarify, characteristics are not final. I know I'm blocking it here. Let me move it up a little bit. There you go. Characteristics are not final. This is all... It's theory crafting. It's deciding about whether this will be a good idea for the game, which is why I'd also like to finish by making sure that you go and deliver your feedback to Wargaming on the forums, and do it in a constructive way, please, boys and girls. If you want to see this in the game, let them know. If you don't want to see it in the game, let them know. If you think that there are ways that they can make it more fun or more balanced or to fit into the game better, come together and give them your ideas. Anyway, that's it. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and hopefully I'll see you soon.